The salt air on Nantucket has a particular weight to it, a dense woolen blanket of scent woven from damp rose hips, sun-bleached cedar, and the distant iron tongue of the sea dot is the smell of memory of 37 summers in a gray-shingled cottage on a bluff overlooking Madaket Harbor. For me, Eleanor Vance, it was the smell of love, and then for DeLong, the smell of a slow, polite suffocation. My late husband, Thomas, and I bought the cottage in 1987. We were young enough, flush with the dual successes of his law practice and my gallery in Cambridge. It was a wreck then peeling paint, a roof that sagged like a tired sigh, plumbing that groaned with existential dread. But we saw its bones strong and salt-weathered, and we saw our future in its wide plank floors. We spent a decade restoring it, not to perfection, but to character. Thomas, a man who could parse a Byzantine contract but couldn't hammer a nail straight. Learned, I sanded floors until my arms trembled, stained my hands with varnish, and planted the climbing Eden roses that eventually swallowed the eastern trellis. It was ours. Every splinter, every sunset viewed from the Adirondack chairs on the bluff, every bottle of wine emptied while listening to the Haringles argue. We etched our initials, foolishly, romantically, on the underside of the new kitchen sink. T+C 1989, a secret for the house to hold. Thomas passed 11 years ago, swiftly and silently, one night in January. A massive coronary, the kind that spares the victim everything and loads the entirety of the suffering onto the living. The cottage became my anchor and my albatross. For the first few summers, I went alone, content in my grief, talking to the walls he'd fixed, watching his roses bloom. It was a sacred, solitary space. The shift was incremental, as these things often are. My daughter, Carolyn, and her husband, David, started coming for long weekends from their busy, important lives in Manhattan. David was in finance, all crisp polish and a laugh that sounded like a stock ticker. Carolyn had embraced motherhood and managerial domesticity with the fervor of a Fortune 500 CEO. They had for children twin boys, Henry and Charles, followed by Chloe and the surprise, Oliver. They traveled with the logistical footprint of a small army. "Mom, you shouldn't be out here all alone," Carolyn said in June, 7 years ago, unpacking a crate of organic, gluten-free snack bars. "It's not healthy, and this place, it's meant for family." For noise, I was happy with my quiet, but I was also lonely, and she was my daughter. The first full summer they moved in, it felt, briefly, like a blessing. The laughter of grandchildren echoing in the halls Thomas built, the sound of a full dinner table. But the blessing came with a tax. The nannies arrived first one, then two efficient young women named Emma and Sophia who lived in the converted attic and looked perpetually exhausted. David began taking conference calls on the bluff, his voice slicing through the ocean's murmur. Carolyn started reorganizing my pantry, my spice drawers, the careful flow of my kitchen, just making it more functional for the group. Mom, I became the incidental curator of my own home. I'd find my favorite reading chair occupied by a laptop and a half-eaten peanut butter sandwich. My collection of sea glass, meticulously gathered over decades. My quiet mornings with coffee. On the porch were now soundtracked by Disney films blaring from the great room, and the thunderous footfalls of children engaged in some form of indoor siege warfare. And I was put to work. Unpaid innkeeper was the precise term, though I didn't have it then. Grocery lists materialized in my hand. Mom, you know the market better. I was expected to coordinate the laundry for 810 with the nannies, to know where the extra lifeguard certified sunscreen was, to pre-soak the grass stains from tiny designer chinos. My role was to facilitate their vacation, to be the benevolent background utility. When I tentatively suggested one July that I might host my own book club for a weekend, Carolyn's laugh was a light, tinkling bell of dismissal. "Oh, Mom, that's sweet. But where would they sleep? The boys are in the guest room and Emma's on the pullout. Maybe another time. It's just, this is our summertime. You know, our summertime. In my house. The house Thomas and I bought. The house in my name alone since his passing. The winters were my sanctuary. They decamped back to Park Avenue, and I reclaimed the silence, nursing the wounds of the season. The house felt like it was exhaling in relief. But each June, the invasion would recommence with greater entitlement. A more settled assumption. David began talking about structural improvements, knocking out a wall to open up the sightlines, building a bunk room in the basement. He'd present them as gifts to me. Eleanor, you'll love it. So much more modern. Last Christmas, over a fraught dinner in the city, the truth finally broke the surface, glossy and ugly. The cottage is really the family's greatest asset. David said, swirling a Cabernet. We're thinking of formally adding a wing. It's wasted on one person for most of the year, and the equity just sitting there. It's inefficient. Carolyn patted my hand. Don't look so shocked. Mom, it's practical. And it's not like you could manage it alone forever. This way, it stays in the family. Wasted on one person. The phrase landed in my gut and coiled there, cold and venomous. I looked at my daughter, this stranger I had raised, and saw in her cool, blue eyes not love, but a benign assessment of a depreciating asset. I was the custodian of their legacy, a relic in the way of a more profitable development. I said nothing. I simply finished my wine, but in that silence, a resolve, hard and sharp as a diamond, was forged. The planning was my secret joy. I contacted Martha, Thomas's old law partner, a woman of formidable intellect and zero sentimentality. Finally, she grunted over the phone. I've been waiting for you to get tired of being the family's welcome mat. Let's talk trusts and property law. The cottage was mine, free and clear. Martha confirmed it with the relish of a chef sharpening a favorite knife. We plotted like generals. I would list the house quietly, off market. Martha knew a couple, friends of friends, who'd been yearning for a Nantucket retreat for years. No brokers, no paper trail for Carolyn to stumble upon, just a private sale in early spring, while Carolyn was consumed with applying to exclusive summer camps for the children. I met the Sutherlands, Peter and Claire, from Beacon Hill. He was a retired professor of maritime history. She, a violinist with the Boston Symphony. They were quiet, thoughtful, and when they walked into the cottage, they didn't see a development opportunity. Claire's hand went to the sun-warmed shingles. Peter stood at the living room window, watching the light on the water, and said, "Oh, Eleanor, it has a soul." Their golden retriever, Barnaby, snuffled happily at the hearthrug and promptly fell asleep. They didn't want to change a thing. They wanted to live in it, just as it was. They offered cash. A 14-day closing. It was kismet. Signing the papers in Martha's Boston office was a sublime, terrifying act of liberation. The pen felt heavy, final. I thought of Thomas, not with sadness, but with a fierce, protective love. They will not turn our sanctuary into a timeshare, my love. They will not erase us. I signed Eleanor Marie Vance with a flourish. The proceeds, a staggering sum given Nantucket's insane market, were wired into an account only Martha and I controlled. The execution required theatrical timing. Carolyn called in late May, her voice bubbling with faux excitement. "Mom, big news. We've decided to host a small family reunion at the cottage. For Dad's side. Just to, reconnect the cousins. It'll be so fun for you." I sat in my now quiet Cambridge living room, a faint smile on my lips. A reunion. How lovely. How many? Oh, just a handful. You know how these things balloon. Maybe 40, 50. We've got Aunt John coming from Florida, the twins from Seattle. David's handling the logistics. We've even booked a tent for the lawn. And a chef, Miguel Santos. He has a pop-up in the Hamptons that's impossible to get. This is going to be the event. I could hear the social ambition thrumming in her voice. This wasn't about family. This was about a showcase. My cottage was to be the stage for her production. It sounds like a lot, Carolyn, for the house. Don't worry about a thing, she chirped, the dismissal automatic. We've got it all covered. Honestly, Mom, if the chaos is too much for you, you don't even have to attend. We can have Sophia set you up a nice quiet spot in the garden, or you could even pop back to Cambridge for the weekend. No pressure at all. There it was. The final, gracious eviction from my own life. You don't even have to attend. I let the silence hang for a beat, sweet as poison. Then I said, voice dripping with honeyed compliance, wonderful. I'll be out of your hair. I could almost feel her smug satisfaction radiating through the phone. She'd gotten her way. The troublesome, aging mother had been neatly sidelined. The following weeks were a study in clandestine activity. I arranged for a discreet moving and storage company out of Hyannis. I curated what I wanted from the house, Thomas's books, our wedding china, the small seascape we bought on our honeymoon in Maine, the family photos that were truly mine, everything else, the furniture, the linens. The pots and pans could stay for the Sutherlands or be sold. It was just stuff. The soul of the place was coming with me. The reunion was set for the last weekend in June. The weather, as if conspiring with me, was forecast to be flawless. On the appointed morning, a soft golden haze shimmering over the island, I convened my forces at the High Line ferry terminal. There were the movers, 3 burly, taciturn men who asked no questions. There were Peter and Clara Sutherland, looking both excited and reassuringly solid. And there was Martha, holding a manila envelope containing the single most satisfying document she'd ever drafted, a cease and desist order for trespassing, along with formal notice of change of ownership. Effective at 9 a.m. that day, we caravanned into cars and the moving truck down the winding Rose Lime Lane to the cottage. The transformation was already grotesque. A massive white tent, like a bloated mushroom, dominated the bluff where our Adirondack chairs had been. A line of rental vans clogged the driveway. Through the open front door, I could see strangers' cousins, I presumed wandering around with mimosas, examining my bookshelves, fingering my curtains. The air buzzed with the shriek of a commercial-grade blender and the clatter of prep work. We pulled up, a stark, official convoy amidst the party chaos. I stepped out first. I had dressed carefully, a simple but elegant cream linen pantsuit, pearl earrings, my hair coiffed. I looked like the lady of the manor, because, for 10 more minutes, I still was. Carolyn emerged from the house, a vision in a pristine white sundress, a clipboard in hand. Her face cycled through confusion, irritation, and a forced hostess smile. Mom, what are you? Who are these people? Her eyes scanned the movers, the Sutherlands. Then they landed on Martha, and a flicker of primal fear crossed her features. She knew Martha. Good morning, Carolyn, I said, my voice carrying over the din. I see the party is coming along. Yes, it's busy. Who are these gentlemen? She gestured stiffly at the movers. They're here for my things, I said pleasantly. Your things? Mom, what are you talking about? We have 50 people arriving in 2 hours. I'm aware, I said, but you said I didn't have to attend. And you were right. So I've made other arrangements. Permanent ones. David lumbered out then, his face flushed. Eleanor, this is not the time. We have a chef setting up a sous vide station in your dining room. Not my dining room, I corrected him gently. I nodded to Martha. Martha stepped forward, a predator in a pinstripe suit. David, Carolyn, I am here representing Eleanor Vance, sole owner of this property. As of 9 a.m. today, title has transferred to Mr. and Mrs. Sutherland here, she gestured. Peter and Claire offered small, polite, unyielding smiles. You and your guests are currently trespassing. This order, she said, handing the paper to a stand David, directs you to vacate the premises immediately. Failure to do so will result in swift legal action, including calls to the Nantucket Police Department. The world seemed to freeze. The chatter from the tent died. A caterer holding a tower of champagne glasses stopped in his tracks. The only sound was the distant cry of a gull. Carolyn's face was a masterpiece of unraveling. Confusion, denial, dawning horror. Transferred. What? Mom, what have you done? This is our home. It was my home. I said, each word a clean, sharp cut. Mine and your father's. You called it wasted on one person. You treated me like the hell. You planned your spectacle in my sanctuary without my consent. David, ever the pragmatist, found his voice. This is insane. You can't do this. We have a contract with the chef. The rentals. The family is here. It was then that the chef himself, the celebrated Miguel Santos, came out, wiping his hands on an apron. He looked from David's apoplectic face to my calm one. Senator, there is a problem with the kitchen vent, and the oysters have arrived. Where would you like them? Carolyn seized on this, a drowning woman clutching at a twig. She pointed at me, her voice a screech. You see, the caterer is already here with the oysters. A perfect line, a line from a farce. I smiled then, a genuine, radiant smile that reached my eyes for the first time in years. I reached into my purse and pulled out a single, old key on a faded lobster buoy keychain. It was the key to the cottage. I took Carolyn's limp hand, pressed the cold metal into her palm, and closed her fingers around it. Tell the chef the oysters travel well, I said, my voice clear and carrying. The ferry leaves in an hour. I'm sure you can have everyone fed by then. Consider the key a farewell gift. It doesn't work in the locks anymore, of course. The Sutherlands had them all changed. I turned to Peter and Claire. The house is yours. I'm so sorry for the unexpected welcoming committee. Claire squeezed my arm. We'll take it from here, Eleanor. I turned my back on my daughter's stunned, tear-streaked face, on David's sputtering protests, on the grotesque white tent. I walked to the car without a backward glance. I did not see the movers begin their efficient work. I did not see Martha explaining the law to a growing crowd of bewildered relatives. I did not see the Nantucket police cruiser that arrived, as promised, 10 minutes later to ensure the peaceful transfer of possession. I heard it, though. The siren was a sweet, final chord.